Welcome to my podcast, Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I'm so excited you are here. You will hear some incredible stories about how people are serving around the world, how they overcame a struggle, how they serve. These shows will give you an edge in business and your personal life. I believe serving over sales will help you grow in so many ways. And now, about our incredible sponsor, Info. Info is a web app that puts your business on people's cell phones when you meet people online or in person. They can engage with your business or send out referrals with a button click, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The power of business is connecting with more people. Remember, your network is your net worth. Info will do this for you. I would love to help spread the word about these shows, so please subscribe to this podcast and find us on all your podcast platforms. Please share with anyone you know who could benefit from our shows. Please enjoy the show. Welcome, everybody, to another awesome episode with Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. And my guest, Chris Felton, is a perfect example of that. I'm excited to have him on. Chris, welcome to the show.
Steve, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Let's start at the very beginning of your story and what's made you such a great success so far.
Screwing up a ton has been the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm in Colorado, so I'm a native and grew up 60 miles north in Loveland, Colorado, 60 miles north of Denver. Colorado State grad, spent 7 years with doing CPA work, Big Six public accounting, and then got sick of working for somebody else and started my own entrepreneurial venture. Right around, I was doing it part-time 1999, went full-time in February 2000, and walked into I'm a financial services entrepreneur. 2000, 2001, 2002, great time to get rolling. And have built that over a period of time. 17 offices, we got about close to 20,000 clients, couple hundred agents. But along the way, I went through a very painful divorce. My kids were small. They moved to the other side of the country with their mom to Atlanta, Georgia. And I met my second and last wife, Marlo, if she's listening, my second and last wife, Marlo. And what she didn't know, Steve, was she walked into a mess. And, I put on a good show. I don't know if you've ever put on a good show for a woman before, Steve. But anyway, I was putting on a good show, talking a good game. And, I looked successful. But what happened was I basically laid down in my divorce because I had so much guilt and had to pay her. And I signed a stupid office lease. And I basically had accumulated $250,000 of credit card debt.
So you're struggling.
I'm struggling. And so I'm paying my ex-wife $5,200 at the beginning of every month, and I'm out of money. And thankfully, about a year before this incident, I ceded and gave up and handed the reins to our financial household over to my wife because I obviously didn't know what I was doing, even though I'm a CPA and financial advisor. And so she finally realized the mess. But in this moment, I had to pay my ex-wife $5,200 the next day, and I was out of money. So I came home, and the only way, Steve, to get that done, because my wife had savings separate from our marriage for good reason, was I had to come home and somehow convince my wife to give me the money to pay my ex-wife.
Wow.
Which I laugh now, but Volcanic Marlo, so my wife's name's Marlo. Volcanic Marlo's not pretty. She's about 5'1". Everyone in my office is scared of her. And dude, she lost it. And we had the fight of all fights, and the fight ended because I was like, well, if it's so bad, why are you still with me?
Yeah.
Well, why are we still married? And she went upstairs to go figure that out. And there I was, man. Turning point of my life was I was there alone, and all I could see, Steve, was just dominoes falling. I was like, oh my God, my ex-wife never had a chance. My kids don't know where dad is or what he's doing. I hadn't seen him for months. You know, they're 7 and 4. I'm drinking too much. I'm in really bad health. The financial stress is like causing physical issues with my wife. And right then and there, I said, oh my God, dude, like I'm self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
I'm the common denominator here. Wherever I've had a problem in my life, I've always been there. And it was the first time in my life I took 100% responsibility for what I'd created. And thank God the next day, Marlo, you know, in her moment of extreme stress, she chose to focus on the good things in me. And she focused on why she wanted to stay. And we got back together the next day, and she said, you know, we're not declaring bankruptcy, we're not getting divorced, we're not getting jobs. We're going to figure this out. We had access to wealthy mentors, thank God. She's like, I'm going to reach out to them. I'm going to interview them. I'm going to figure out how they think, what they do. And then she was kind of like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, obviously I have to do something different. I had to humble down, which was hard for me to do. Pride was killing me. I had to humble down. I had to change because my way of, you know, manipulating the outside world and living on what I call hopium, right? Hoping the outside world's going to change while I insist on remaining the same, rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic. It wasn't working, dude. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to figure out how my mindset keeps creating broke, you know, because mom's broke, dad's broke, grandma's broke, grandpa's broke. And it didn't matter. I was a financial advisor, CPA. I was broke. So I just turned to her. I said, hey, I'm going to change. I'm going to grow. I'm going to develop. And I said, I'm not interested in changing. I am committed to changing. And honey, I am all in like an Olympic athlete is with their sport. There's no question. Olympic athletes aren't interested. They're totally committed. So I got up early, man, 4:35 a.m. I visualized, image, journal. I mean, a lot of stuff in my new book that I laid out. I lay out what I did. And one of my favorite Mel Robbins quotes is, you know, it doesn't happen overnight, but it happens over time. And, you know, within a number of years, we had a jaw-dropping transformation financially. Just totally changed everything, got on the path to financial independence. And not only did we change financially, my whole life in every area of my life transformed.
Yeah.
So,
well, one thing that comes out, and I appreciate your transparency, Chris. I know it's probably easier now. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but this is important for the audience to hear. It's why I love having you here, because you're the perfect epitome of struggling and overcoming. And the decision, you made a decision instead of being indecisive. That's what the audience I want to understand. When I heard your story at the beginning, was when I first met you, was the decision. You said, okay, like you said, I'm going to be an Olympic athlete. How important to you was that decision to do that, and where you are today?
I mean, it's everything. I mean, it's actually, you know, it's a concept in Think and Grow Rich. I mean, I love it when, because I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs, and when they rock it and they hit the goal that seemed like, you know, it was elusive, and I always ask them, it's my favorite question: when did you actually make the decision? And what did that look like? And most importantly, what did that feel like? And then I always encourage them. I'm like, you got your kind of chocolate cake of success recipe there. Like, don't just celebrate the party, go back and document what were the conditions that were that you created, because you got to create the conditions. But I'm like, what were the conditions that you created? What was the environment? What was the thinking that led to that decision? And the power of it, Steve, is, you know, and I think I talk about it in my book quite a bit, is why didn't I make that decision a long time ago? And really the turning point of the decision was shifting me from being needy and fearful and worried to determination. And I turned to my wife and I said, we will never be back here again. And felt it in every fiber of my being. That was actually the chapter in my book. I call it the line in the sand moment. That was the line in the sand moment. And, you know, to answer your question, I mean, that if I didn't do that, probably not married. Who knows? My kids are now 21 and 18. Who knows what that would look like?
Yeah.
Definitely probably wouldn't be an entrepreneur. And I would be, you know, a beach ball on the ocean of life, brother, just getting tossed around.
Bouncing around, yeah. What a great lesson, Chris. And let's do a shout out to Marlo, because she had to make that decision and go, okay, there's some, I mean, I love that she looked at the good, not the bad. Because you can go both ways. A decision, B decision. She made the decision, I'm looking at Chris and the good things that I can help grow, and let's try to remove the bad things. Like you said, not tomorrow, but over time, as Mel Robinson, which is a great quote. Can anybody do this? Can anybody overcome a struggle like this?
Yeah. I mean, it's why I wrote the book. I mean, it's basically, you know, the problem my book solves is stuck, and it is my self-deprecating, dirty laundry that I share out of like how I was stuck in so many areas of my life. And I think, you know, what we've gone through the last few years, I think people, Steve, are more stuck than ever.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know what it's like to live in fear, doubt, and worry. I know what it's like. You know, I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but you're like, I'm doing everything possible and nothing's changing. Like, it's such a horrible place to be. And as a coach, it's painful for me to watch people get so stuck that they think that quitting on their goals, dreams, and aspirations is really the only path. And so I was really close to doing that, but I didn't. And I just said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. So I invested 6 figures plus in personal growth and development. I invested thousands of hours studying this stuff. And, you know, and I'm not a guru. I haven't arrived. I don't have it all figured out, but, you know, that's why I put it out there, because I think people can look at it and go, all right, Chris was stuck there.
Yeah.
What did he do to change? And so, yes, to answer your question, absolutely. Everybody can, but it is literally that decision of, I got to do the work. I got to change. I got to do the work. But the last part of that is the work is going to be worth every second that you put in.
Well said, because hope is a key. If you didn't have hope of any, and your hope was so sliver. I mean, I just listening to you, I'm like, oh my God, you're rocking that teeter-totter of bad and good, bad and good. Thank God you didn't. And thank God for Marlo. So you mentioned coaching. Do you do coaching and helping people that are stuck?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have like a coaching business. I do one-off coaching. I mean, my main mode is book speaking, and probably my favorite is custom tailored workshops that I can do for people, because I love spending a day equipping people to move their lives forward.
Let's talk more about these workshops. That's perfect. So somebody can come to a workshop. We'll get the information out there, audience, so you can have access to it and learn some of these techniques and tools that you used to get unstuck, and they can use those as well.
Yeah, I mean, the book is written in such a way that it's so simple, it's actionable, and it's, you know, my story that I think when people read it, they're going to be like, that if that guy can, I can, right? Because that dude was a freaking mess, right? And but it is written in such a way that if somebody gets their hands on a book and they can, you know, reach out to me and say, Chris, I would love for you to come in and can you cover these 8 concepts? This is the custom tailored, and the keynotes are the same. And so that's probably one of the things I'm most excited about, is I don't have this canned thing of like what I think you need. You can tell me what you need or what your team needs, and I can come in and deliver, you know, more of a rifle approach versus a shotgun. I'm excited and wrote it that way for that purpose.
I love that, Chris, because so many people cookie cutter. and every business is different. Every person's that we're all human. We're not robots. Man, I didn't know you did that. That is so, audience, to listen to that. He customizes the workshop to you guys, and reach out to him again. I love this guy and what he's doing. Chris, this guy, that sounds kind of goofy, but what Chris is doing is it's powerful, because there's a lot of people out there, especially post-COVID, that are stuck. And during COVID, there were, I'm sure, a lot of people stuck. Regards to, let's talk about the book, name of the book. Let's dive into that. I know you dove into it a little bit. Let's talk more about that.
Yeah. The name of the book is Think and Grow You, and the subtitle is How to Get Out of Your Own Way and Level Up Your Life. That's the name of the book, and it's basically written in 5 pillars. And it's, once again, it's written in a format. There's 50 different concepts. Not that that's going to apply to everybody, right? But somebody can literally look at the table of contents and go, like pillar 1 is, get out of your own way. Well, what is that? Well, we have these self-sabotaging patterns that, things happen, and then we just go down that pattern. And so, somebody can scan the table of contents and go, well, how did Chris stop worrying? Wow, that's powerful. Yeah. All right. So what did he do? Right. And I got, so what can I do? And then instead of having that pattern, pillar 2 is how to shift.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so stuff happens. Here's my normal pattern of thought that leads to an action and a result that I don't like. What did Chris do to shift, or what is he recommending? How do I shift to get a different thought, a different feeling, a different action, than a different result? So I love the shifting part. There's a whole chapter or a whole pillar on relationships, because everything we want in life comes from and through people, and you can't have a fulfilling life without that. So how I cleaned up a bunch of garbage that I created.
Yeah.
And then the 4th pillar is like game plan how-tos. It's great to have thinking, but how do I execute? And I worked with a world-class coach for 4.5 years. It changed my life. But he said, Chris, you're a great goal setter, but man, you're a horrible goal achiever. and we're into February right now, and a lot of people forget what they committed to at the beginning of the year already. I did that. And so some real good tactical stuff that just transformed our results to a whole nother level. And then the last pillar, which I think actually is one of the first ones you need to look at, is, what do I really want? What is the dream? What is, the clarity of aim? Most people have no clue what they want. They can't explain it. They lack conviction. And, if you don't know where you're going, that GPS system's useless. So anyway, but that's kind of how it's laid out.
I love what you're saying. And one of the pillars that really caught my ear was the shifting, because I talk to people too. I don't charge. I'm like you. I'm always trying to help people, serve people. And I love that you're doing that. But the shifting one is big to me, because I know a lot of people that make a decision, but they don't. I call it action, and shifting is probably a better word. I'm going to decide to do this. And you go to 1 week later, hey, did you do it? Oh, not yet. I'm busy. I'm like, well, then you make a decision, right? Let's talk more about that shifting.
Yeah. I mean, it's, there's no clarity without action. And what happens is, a lot of people, like they sit on, they got their ship in the water, they got their sailboat in the water, and they're sitting on the dock trying to map it out. And they're overthinking, and overthinking always masks fear. And what they really need to do is just pull up the anchor and get out in the open sea, and start adjusting the sails. And your brain lights up. You get your dopamine hits when you're actually in movement, and it's necessary. And it's really the small steps. That's what my coach taught me is, the clarity of aim is so big. But if we're at base camp looking up at Mount Everest, which is where my wife and I were, we set a very aggressive savings goal. And, it was overwhelming, and I was overthinking. And then I allowed what's called the cursed who's and the cursed hows to enter my mind. And it's a form of self-sabotage. And it's okay. How? Who? No, you're not going to figure that out. It's the clarity of aim. And then it is literally the next step and the next step and the next step. And it was just constantly, Steve, what do I want? What's the next thing I need to do? What do I want? What's the next thing I need to do? And then just the constant course correction of it all.
Yeah.
And so the small step, if people are procrastinating or hesitating, it's because they are literally trying to map out the whole climb up to the peak. And of course that's overwhelming. But the small step is, I can do that. Right? Just like it took me 14 months to write the book. If I had to think about all the stuff I had to put together to write it, I would have never freaking started.
Yeah.
But thank God I had a world-class coach that sold almost 4 million books. He said, yeah, let's just write the first story, dude.
And build on it.
Yeah. And I can do that. And then the last thing I'll say about it, Steve, is, stress is a choice.
Yep.
And one of my quotes I think I use multiple times in the book is, there's no happy ending to an unhappy journey. So if I'm not having joy in the process, it's not going to work. It's delusional to think that you're going to get to, the peak and go, okay, now I can be happy. And I guarantee when you do that, you're going to be like, is this all there is? So
Yep.
Lots of stuff there, but just, Mike Dooley, I'm a big Mike Dooley fan. He says, just pick the least suckiest path and go.
Love that. And it's really cool what you're saying. If you're in a job that doesn't make you happy, you can't hit the mountain in a way, and the other thing that you're doing is you're helping the other side of this, the Marlowe side, let's just call it that. So your book and your workshops can also help that other side with the person that's struggling, but the person that has to watch the struggle. We don't want to lose sight of that, because that's powerful to me. You're serving not only the person struggling, but the person that has to deal with the struggle. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And our first book was Couples Money, and it's 12 years ago, but it was, it was about her and I getting on the same page, because, part of the relationships, one of the chapters in the book is you got to mind the gap, I call it. And the gap in expectations, in all relationships fail because there's a gap in expectations. My first marriage never had a chance, because she had her expectations, I had mine. I hated confrontation. I hated difficult conversations. So I just avoided them.
Yeah.
And lots of reasons why she never had a chance, but that was a big one.
Yeah.
And dude, I was doing the same thing with Marlo. And so when we finally sat down, and I'm like, what do you really, 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 really want? And she's like, what do you really, 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 really want? And we heard each other out. What do we want? And then most importantly was, why do we want it? Why is it important? And then we set what I call unifying goal. We set a unifying goal as a couple. And it was to have $100,000 saved, because we were $250,000 in debt and we had nothing saved.
Yeah.
We had nothing saved. But that goal and the time we spent on it, Steve, asking why it was important, single best goal I've ever set in my life was that one.
Well, thank you, because I'm newly married in July of 2022. And what you just said has opened my heart. Thank you very much. Opened my heart. I really, really appreciate you saying that, because personally for me, and anybody out there in the audience, if you're married 6 months, like me, or 8 months, sorry, wife, if I said the wrong time, or 80 years, so 40 years, I love what you're saying. It just sounds so simple to me, and I love that you did that. What was the name of that book again? Couples? To say, I want the audience to hear that.
Yeah, Couples Money. Yeah,
Couples Money. Okay.
Yeah. It's it's our story, how we turned it around, mentally, but the how-tos of it all. Yeah. And my wife pretty much wrote the book, but she had to slap my name on it, because the title would have looked weird.
Yeah, so. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm included.
Yeah. Well, that kind of happens sometimes, and that's okay. Everybody wins that way. Is there any other books? I know you've written 2 fantastic books the audience can reach out. So another book that outside what you've written that's really helped you grow?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, back to my book, every concept has a resource that I use to transform. So there's a ton in there, but probably the most, I use it in multiple chapters. Bob Proctor's book, You're Born Rich, I think is absolute must. And when I get kind of people newer to personal growth and development, like, where do I even start? I'm like, Proctor nailed it. And he's one of my heroes. And that's a book you can never stop reading, no matter, how much you develop, because it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
What he puts in that book. So
Yeah, and I love that. So any audience out there, if you're thinking of starting your business, he just led you the right way where you want to read and reach out to him. If you're starting a business, you're challenging, I want you to reach out to Chris. You all can see why I had him on the show. I've learned a lot. I know you're going to learn a lot as you listen to this podcast and watch this YouTube show. I want to thank you, Chris. You're a blessing. God bless what you're doing. And God bless how you've helped people. I'm sure you have a ton of stories of people you helped. Is there one real quick one, because we're running out of time here, that you can share with somebody you work with and where they came from and where they went to, that the audience can hear about?
There's
probably a ton of them.
There's a lot, but it's, there's been a lot. I've had a few that, you just never know, right? And you want to be intentional about your giving, and it's so easy to get in our own way and make it about us. But, I've had some people that were on the path to kind of ending it, and, God fortunately put me in the right place at the right time to,
Amen.
Take the focus off of me and put it on them. And it wasn't, I think the chapter in my book is called Be a Spark. You don't have to be this almighty leader. And sometimes you just need to be a spark. Sometimes you just need to ask a question. Sometimes you just need to listen. But I think some of my favorite stories was not necessarily, how almighty and great I was. It was just how I lit a little bit of a spark that transformed that person. They did the work, but I was there to get them to move in that direction.
Well, thank you, because now I have a new phrase: servant spark. Yeah. Serving with a spark. So I'm going to write that down. But that's a good one. I appreciate that, because it's a little light, but a little light can turn into a big flame in a fireplace. I love that. Well, again, I want to thank you. Audience, his information is going to be in the chat. I want you to reach out to him. You can tell this guy has a huge heart. And if you need to reach out to Marlo, I'll throw it out there. He'll probably introduce you to Marlo if you got to talk to Marlo. Sounds like a wonderful lady. Someday I hope I meet her. Sure. I'd love to leave the audience with one tip that's really got you through this incredible journey you've been through, that they can use for their journey.
Yeah, I think it's relax. I actually learned it from Bob Proctor. I heard him speak, and he was talking about teeing up his life for the next decade, and just that thought of like, I gotta climb the mountain, and that tense and that stress and that pressure. And he said, but I'm going to do it in a relaxed, calm manner. And he called it calm urgency. It changed my life, man. I could just feel the stress leave my body. He's calm urgency, but with that, and it's a chapter in the book, it's trust. It's going to be okay. And a phenomenal story in the book about that. But I wasted a tremendous amount of time stressed, worried, thinking about worst case scenarios. And if I just would have calmed down and relaxed and just trusted that I wasn't alone, I would have ended needless suffering and probably would have got to my goal, my destination a lot quicker.